I was hit by a car and suddenly forced into life in a wheelchair. What my husband handed me was a pre-filled divorce form.
You ended up in a wheelchair due to your carelessness, didn't you? Caring for you is such a hassle. Let's get divorced. I'm not going to wipe your ass for you.
His cold words left me blank. After supporting me for 40 years, I couldn't forgive this kind of behavior. Anger flared up within me. My name is Madison. I just turned 60. I've been with my husband Jackson, who is 3 years older, for 40 years. We met in college. Back then, I enjoyed drinking coffee at the small cafe where my husband worked. The cafe was run by his parents. And my husband, with his cool looks, worked as a waiter there. He listened to my complaints, though he probably wasn't interested, and I was drawn to how he talked amiably with any customer. After a year of approaching him, we started dating. Soon after I graduated from college, we got married. Some friends said we were getting married too soon, but I wanted to reassure my elderly grandmother, who raised me alone without my parents. So we decided to register our marriage. As expected, my grandmother seemed relieved when she saw our wedding, but she passed away before holding her great-grandchild, leaving only my uncle from my mother's side as my only relative. Yet, I didn't feel lonely. Because my in-laws treated me like their own daughter. Living together in my husband's family's house, a 10-minute walk from the store, was not suffocating, but truly comfortable, and I tasted the happiness of family firsthand. My in-laws taught me the business, strict yet gentle with my inexperience, and soon after our first year of marriage, our adorable daughter Lily was born, and I was at the height of happiness. Soon after, the economy improved nationwide, my in-laws retired, and my husband began to slack off at work.
I'm going out for a bit.
What? It's almost lunchtime. We're running around the place together. Can't you see the stroller? I showed him our daughter sleeping in the stroller. Children shouldn't be separated from their parents. I worked in the shop with my young daughter in the stroller. If you leave, and the baby cries or needs a diaper change, and I have to retreat to the back, there won't be any staff here. It'll be a problem.
It'll be fine. Besides, it's mostly regulars who come. And even if they have to wait a bit or we slack off a bit, they won't complain about our prices.
That's not. I was speechless at his careless words, considering we were in the food and beverage business, but what he said wasn't entirely wrong. It was an unprecedented economic boom, and our store, like many others, had customers spending a lot of money. Most items on the menu ranged from $5 to as high as $10. Regulars, who made up most of our clientele, would tolerate some waiting, and new customers would forgive at this price, he thought. The goodness of these prices was such that even customers, seeing me struggling with childcare, would give tips as consolation. Moreover, unlike today, the internet was not widespread. So good or bad word of mouth didn't spread easily, and many establishments managed to survive even with lower quality than ours. Still, I wanted customers to leave satisfied, saying the food and coffee were delicious. And I didn't want to tarnish the reputation of the store I inherited from my in-laws. So I juggled everything: customers, tables, dishes, coffee, and my daughter, with care while working. Thanks to there not being particular peak times at the small shop, I managed to run the shop alone, and profits were sufficient thanks to the economy. But that was the problem. Hey, order for the new customer. Sandwich set, 2 coffees.
Huh? I can't leave right now, so you do it. Anyway, that horse I bet on came in first.
While bustling around like that, he casually brushed me off, talking to regulars across the counter. Originally, he handled the kitchen, and I handled the front of the house, but once he thought I could handle it, he started slacking off even more. After preparing the food and opening preparations, he would just talk to regulars or read the horse racing paper, as if my work was someone else's business. And when I complained, he casually said,
"You can handle it just fine on your own, so I don't need to bother."
At the worst times, he often went out to play with regulars, even during business hours. Around that time, my in-laws passed away one after another, and with the inheritance, he slacked off even more. Not only slacking off at work. He said housework and childcare were women's responsibilities. So even when our daughter cried or needed a diaper change, all he did was talk. Change her diaper, or isn't it time for her to eat? Feed her. And he hardly helped at all. So, in addition to managing the store, I took on the triple duty of housework and childcare instead, and I had been living a dizzyingly busy life. Then, when my daughter was in elementary school, the economy worsened, and with it, the number of customers decreased. After being told by regulars, he finally started working, but I had more than a few thoughts about his work attitude, which had been lazy for years. However, I couldn't point it out. Being told off by me, he used the store as a bargaining chip. Thinking about my in-laws' feelings, my heart broke, and I swallowed my dissatisfaction with him, who had gone too far, and quietly decided to support him for the stability of the store and to secure sufficient sales. He still didn't help with housework or childcare, and his lazy habits didn't change. But I told myself that supporting him here was the wife's duty and worked desperately. And now, 40 years have passed since we got married, and the store is still going strong despite repeated recessions. Our daughter, who had helped as the store's mascot, left home with a wonderful man, and now she's a splendid mother with a son in elementary school. Conversation with my husband has decreased, and we spend more time apart, but it's not unusual for couples of our age. We eat together and sleep together, so I even think we get along better than other elderly couples, and although it was tough, I had confidence that we had raised our daughter while protecting the store together. The only problem left was the issue of succession, I thought one day. It was raining in the evening that day. What should I do? I didn't expect it to rain, and I didn't have an umbrella. Did you bring one?
Husband, no, I didn't bring one either.
Even though our house is close, if we get caught in the rain at this time of year, we'll catch a cold. I'm not willing to take that risk at this age. As I let out a sigh, he tossed me the key to the bicycle we kept at the store.
You should head home before it starts pouring. If you take the bike, you'll get home before it gets too bad. I'm going to drink with the usual guys anyway, so I'll close up the store.
With those words, he urged me to go home hastily. In that case, I took advantage of his words and left the store first to start preparing for dinner and a bath. After about an hour, when I tried to take a break, I realized I had forgotten my phone at the store. He had said he was going out with friends today, and even though it was just for one night, not having my phone as a means of contact in case of an emergency is troublesome. Rushing back to the store to retrieve it, in the darkness after closing, I saw two figures moving, and I held my breath. Could it be thieves? As I debated whether to call the police, my hand accidentally turned on the lights on the wall. Seeing the two figures illuminated, I felt like my world was collapsing. There stood my husband, embracing a strange, beautiful woman.
Hey! What are you doing here?
Seeing his flustered attitude and the unusual atmosphere, I couldn't bear it and fled the scene. Thrown into panic by his sudden betrayal, I didn't notice the traffic light flashing, and the next moment, my vision was blinded by the headlights of a car, and I lost consciousness after spinning once. When I next became aware, I was in a hospital bed. Beside me, my daughter with tousled hair was peering at my face with a worried expression.
Thank goodness. Nurse, my mother has woken up. Please come.
From what the doctor told me, it seems I was hit by a car and didn't wake up for 3 days. I didn't have anything on me, not even my ID or wallet. But luckily, a witness to the accident happened to be one of our regulars, so they were able to contact my husband. My daughter, who got the message from him, explained the situation to her husband and grandchild and came here the same day. A few days after regaining consciousness, in the examination room where the 3 of us were together, the doctor presented me with an unbearable reality. Due to the accident, I had suffered a spinal cord injury. I could no longer walk, and I couldn't even bathe by myself. If things continued like this, I would need care, and a wheelchair would be essential for mobility. Upon hearing the doctor's words, I was speechless, and it seemed my husband and daughter couldn't hide their shock either. But I wasn't so weak as to despair because of it. My daughter came to visit me every day and supported me mentally and physically. Thanks to her, I endured the difficult rehabilitation and got used to life in a wheelchair. As I began to regain mental composure, I started to recall the dreadful memories of that accident. Who was that woman? What was she doing in that dark place? Even though my daughter, who came to visit me, searched for it and brought it with her, there was no response when I tried to contact her using the smartphone. As I pondered how to confront her when we next met, my phone rang. It was a message notification, and the sender was my husband. He seemed to have something he wanted to talk about. An apology, perhaps, or maybe an excuse. With things having come to this, we decided to have a proper discussion and settle matters. The next day, my husband visited the hospital empty-handed. Since being informed about the wheelchair, he hadn't shown his face even once. As he entered the room, his first words weren't words of concern or care for me. Instead, he said,
A private room, how luxurious.
Suppressing my frustration at his insensitivity, I quietly replied. I went along with the other party's wishes. They agreed to cover all the medical expenses for treatment, in addition to compensation.
Nicely done. So, a substantial amount must have rolled in, right?
What's with that tone? Don't speak about others like that. Ignoring his tactless words, I inadvertently raised my voice, to which he smirked and continued.
Don't get mad. It's a fact that a lot of money came in, right? It just makes it easier for us to talk.
Huh? Seeing him seated on a chair beside the bed, pulling out a small folded paper from his pocket, I was speechless.
Sorry for the abruptness, but please divorce me.
It was a divorce form already filled out. Huh? What do you mean? I blinked in disbelief. I couldn't catch up with his unexpected actions.
I said I had something to discuss, didn't I?
Are you serious?
Yeah. Thinking back, I've been fed up for a long time. Even though I could manage the business alone, you kept interfering, making a fuss.
But that cafe was handed down from your parents. It's an important place for me.
That's a misunderstanding. That cafe is mine. Back then, when I wanted to sell it, you even said not to.
But at the time, The economy was bad, and it was difficult to find another job. We didn't have any qualifications. It was obvious that it would cause trouble for our daughter if we gave up the job.
Come to think of it, I've been feeling strange since then. Even though I inherited the cafe, because of the family, I couldn't even exercise the rights to the shop freely.
My shoulders tensed at his shouting. Blaming it on the family? I was dumbfounded by him treating us, who had supported each other all along, like intruders. He continued to vent out what he had been holding in.
Even after coming home, you'd frown, make sarcastic remarks, and check the sales figures. On top of that, you'd use being busy as an excuse for half-hearted housework.
Because we both work, and someone has to check the sales. It's necessary.
That's not all. Even if we wanted to go out or do something, we had to inform each other. It's ridiculous.
As he listed his complaints one after another, the trust one had built up for him crumbled, replaced by anger. You're going to put your betrayal aside? After doing something like that, do you expect me to just let it go? Isn't it obvious to keep in touch when we live together? Besides, were you doing what you said? I questioned him, my words catching in my throat. That day, you were embracing a woman in a dark store, weren't you? If I hadn't seen that, I wouldn't have had the accident. Are you planning to be with that woman after the divorce? I glared and interrogated him. But instead of being taken aback, my husband, without a hint of remorse, said,
Are you blaming me? I don't know what you're misunderstanding, but I'm not in that kind of relationship with her. Do you even have any evidence?
There was no evidence. Knowing that, I bit my lip as he laughed triumphantly. With that ugly smile, any remaining affection vanished completely. How could you? Even though I ended up like this, don't you feel anything?
You ended up in a wheelchair because of your carelessness. Taking care of someone is troublesome. Please divorce me. I have no intention of taking care of you.
Wait a minute, Dad. There's a difference between saying good things and bad things, you know?
We both turned to stare at the door simultaneously. Standing there was our daughter, trembling with anger.
When did you get here?
I thought it was a serious situation, and I didn't want to interfere with marital issues, but I can't stand it anymore. I've been listening. If Mom ended up like this, it's all because Dad cheated.
At her outburst, he snorted.
If you're going to say that much, then you should take care of her yourself. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life taking care of her. I'm out.
You're the worst.
Say whatever you want. You're not a child anymore, so you understand the ins and outs of relationships between men and women.
My daughter gritted her teeth at his words. Her eyes were red with anger. Thanks to her anger, my head began to cool down. I stared at the divorce form and asked my husband, what was everything I did for? I've tried to serve you in my way, but are you just going to throw me away when I'm no longer useful?
That sarcastic attitude of yours annoys me. Your hospitalization reminded me of the days of freedom. Once I tasted that life, I couldn't go back to the old one. Isn't this a good opportunity? Let's both be free.
Fed up with his expression of my accident as an opportunity, I agreed to the divorce. I didn't want to be with such a man anymore, but I wanted what I could get. When I brought up the property division, he became visibly displeased. But I made him agree that I would receive everything paid by the other party in the traffic accident, without touching anything related to the house, shop, household items, etc. and I would leave without taking anything, in exchange for receiving 60% of the savings.
Let's end this quickly. I'll withdraw your share right now, so write the divorce papers in the meantime.
With that one-sided statement, he hurriedly left the hospital room. In the quiet hospital room, I spoke to my daughter. I'm sorry for burdening you with unpleasant things. And I might inconvenience you until I settle down. I'm sorry.
Don't worry about it. I'm on your side. Is this arrangement better?
It's fine. It's sudden, but could you stop by the family home and gather my belongings? Do you know where everything is?
It's okay. I've been helping with cleaning and organizing every time I visit home recently. And I've been shown the location of valuables just in case, so leave it to me.
Watching her leave the room, I faced the divorce papers. I won't let things end according to his wishes. I was holding my breath, but suddenly I realized the harsh reality that awaited me ahead with my husband. After that, I signed the divorce papers in front of him. Seeing that, he smiled satisfactorily and swiftly snatched the paper.
Okay. With this, we're strangers now.
I quietly told my genuinely happy husband. I hate to ruin your mood, but you'll probably regret this.
You think? If anyone's going to regret it, it's you. Nobody wants a wheelchair granny, and you, who can't do anything, might end up with dementia. But don't contact me. We're strangers now. Farewell and live well.
As I bid farewell to him, who left triumphantly, I received a message from my daughter saying she had finished packing the belongings. She said she finished quickly because she had been throwing away unnecessary items. For confirmation, she even sent me photos of the contents. The box containing valuables was neatly packed. As long as I have this, I don't mind not having anything else. As I thanked her, a message arrived from a friend and regular customer, saying they were coming to visit. Perfect timing. Let's add some flowers to the path of hardship that man has chosen. The friend who came to visit was a well-known gossip lover in the neighborhood, and she talked endlessly without me even asking. According to her, my husband had won some horse race bets and was bragging about it to everyone. And, immediately after the divorce was finalized, he took a beautiful woman from a famous strip club to a resort hotel for fun. From the description, she was probably the most beautiful woman I saw at that time. I couldn't help but be amazed, considering he hadn't opened the shop once since my accident.
I heard from your daughter, whom I happened to meet, about what's going on. I was so surprised. What on earth happened?
As she looked at me with curiosity mixed with sympathy, I tearfully recounted the events that led to the divorce. When I finished, her eyes were filled with both sympathy and anger. She held my hand, leaving behind words of strong support, and left the hospital room. After her figure completely disappeared, I quietly turned over the pillow and chuckled to myself. It's a good thing I had the opportunity to put in eye drops. Now, what will happen next? About a month after the accident, I was safely discharged from the hospital. Several months later, when I had gotten used to life in a wheelchair, I went to a large shopping mall. Since it was a weekday, the food court was empty. I found a seat and took a break when someone called out to me.
Hey! You! Madison? It's Madison, right?
When I turned around, I saw my ex-husband, who had aged rapidly over the past few months. His hair was a mix of gray and messy, and he was dressed in a wrinkled shirt and shorts, looking like an old man. His appearance made it clear that even everyday life was a struggle for him. In contrast, shortly after being discharged, I got a neat short haircut and put on makeup today. If I do say so myself, I look younger than my actual age.
You've changed quite a bit in demeanor.
When we were married, I hardly had any time for myself between household chores and work. He smiled politely at my sarcasm.
So, you must have a lot of free time now, right? Why not help out a bit before you lose your mind?
Just as I thought.
Huh?
You're probably not doing well with the cafe business, right? My words made his polite smile freeze. It seemed I hit a nerve. I thought so. After all, I was the one running the kitchen, the floor, and the accounting. Well, after enjoying himself while the business was booming, when he finally returned, his skills had significantly declined. He didn't remember the cooking procedures, and the priorities at work were all messed up. He even struggled with operating the cash register. So, I had been working ahead of him, doing what he was supposed to do as support. Preparing snacks, mixing seasonings, cleaning up dishes, taking orders for sweets and cakes, managing tea and coffee bean orders and inventory, tax filings, and so on. If the person who handled all of that suddenly left, it's no wonder things didn't go smoothly. Had fun at the resort hotel? Maybe you should get her to help.
Forget about that woman. She ran away when I asked her to help at the shop.
He said angrily, but she was a woman from the strip club. She probably only took care of him, a client with money, and he was the only one serious about it. Ironically, as my ex-husband himself had said, that relationship was just a fling. He continued bitterly.
I don't know why, but even the regular old ladies haven't been coming lately. They used to linger and chat for hours, but now they're nowhere to be found.
Of course, why would they? You made the regulars your enemies. Huh?
Huh?
Although he seemed to resent the long stays and chatty customers, the housewives who spent a long time and money at our shop were our loyal customers. It seems my friend who came to visit spread the word about my ex-husband's betrayal. They were also my friends. Even though I've been cheated on by my husband and had an accident, it's naive to think they would still come as if nothing had happened, don't you think? A shop whose owner cheated on his wife and left her is naturally repulsive. To not understand that. I sighed in exasperation.
We're short-staffed, and the shop has been losing money lately. It'll go under at this rate.
I'm already out of the picture, aren't I? It's not my concern. As I tried to leave, he grabbed the wheelchair. Wait.
Did you do something?
Otherwise, why would suddenly nothing go right? Desperately held back and startled. Just then.
Dad, what are you doing?
When I turned to the voice, there stood my daughter with a skeptical expression.
Lily.
He let go abruptly, approaching her with a smile, as if nothing had happened. I'm sorry to suddenly ask, but could you live with me?
Huh?
We're short-staffed at the shop, and I can't handle things at home either. I want you to help out. If Madison's leaving, you need me, the former poster girl, to come back. If you come, your whole family can live with us at the family home. There's space available, so don't worry. You won't need to pay rent, and eventually, I'll hand over the shop to you guys.
How about it? Not a bad deal, right?
Dad.
She smiled and asserted.
This isn't a joke.
Huh?
You left everything, work, house chores, and me, to Mom, and now you're asking her daughter to take care of you? That's too convenient.
He was speechless at the harsh words laid out in a row. Without waiting for a response, she continued.
Did you forget your words and actions when Mom was in the hospital? After doing that, how can you say such things? Do you want to live with a wife who supported you desperately for 40 years, even considering breaking off this parent-child relationship? Even if you offer a lot of money, I'd refuse.
Seemingly not expecting such a vehement rejection from his daughter, he was stunned.
I was out of my mind back then.
At least you realized that. But we won't live together.
Why not?
Because we're already living with Mom.
Huh?
Yes. She came to pick me up from the hospital and took me to her own home. And since she and her family suggested living together, I decided to take them up on their offer and live together.
Well, then it's better to stay with me, right? There won't be any need for caregiving.
Sorry to disappoint you. We're not putting up with each other.
Huh? This useless person is just a burden.
Did you forget what the doctor said? I might have a lower body disability, but my upper body is fine. Since we started living together, I've been in charge of cooking.
Oh.
He seemed to finally remember my words.
And even when you talk about caregiving, I'm not there. Our son is growing, and with both of us working, there's no time for cooking, so I've been making quick meals, thanks to Mom cooking for us every meal, complete with delicious coffee afterward. Thanks to her, the three of us are healthy. As expected from someone who has been in the food and beverage industry for 40 years, the taste is superb. The meals Mom made at the cafe were popular.
Seeing her radiant smile, he remained stunned. I exchanged glances with my daughter and tried to leave the scene. At that moment, he suddenly dropped to his knees in front of me, tears streaming down his face.
I was wrong. I realized how important daily life and the shop were without you. Please. Marry me again.
I sighed deeply. My feelings about this are already determined. Not. I declined from the bottom of my heart. As soon as I said that.
Wait. Please wait.
He reached out to me desperately. Seeing his unusual behavior, my daughter quickly moved the wheelchair away from me. Shortly after, triggered by my rejection, he began to rampage. And he was taken away by several security guards, disappearing somewhere. Not wanting to get involved with him any further, we decided to leave the shopping mall and have a meal elsewhere. Now that the chaos was over, my heart was surprisingly calm. 6 months later, I learned through a friend that my ex-husband's cafe had closed down. At the same time, he sold the house and tried to make money from horse racing, but ended up losing a lot. He moved to a cheaper, older apartment than the previous one and lives on a pension. Meanwhile, I use my free time to hold regular cooking classes. All I need is the cost of the ingredients. Any place with kitchen facilities is okay. Most of them are held at elementary schools, doubling as community events, and some schools even started cooking classes with me as a guest instructor. As a retro cafe, the cafe menu is very popular. Although I lost the use of my lower body in an unexpected accident, it allowed me to have the happiest retirement imaginable. I want to live the rest of my life as I please, like reclaiming 40 years of myself. How did you find this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Well then, let's meet again in the next video. 37, 47.